right, everyone. Welcome to the old switcheroo where we're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. Join us on our epic quest to research and review all 200 plus games in the Nintendo Switch Online retro catalog. Today, we'll be focusing on the nature photography game Pokemon Snap on the Nintendo 64 in an episode I am calling Aperture Science. And Mike, speaking of film, I believe you have brought a bona fide cinephile for today's expedition. Would you mind introducing him?
Yeah, so this time we're joined by Derick McDuff from the Underrated Movie Podcast. And I was on his show a couple months ago to talk about Bad Times at the El Royale, which was a great blast. And so I'm going to let Derek sort of explain why we were talking about that movie and why he talks about all the movies he talks about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I had a blast with that episode. It is one that I had wanted to talk about for a long time because, my show, as the name might imply, is about underrated movies, underappreciated movies, ones that have slipped under the radar. Because there's some films that I just want to champion that I think deserve more love. And it's kind of like me and Jaymo were talking about before. I love that thing of like, hey, this is a great movie. I want to lift it up. I don't want to be the person who, as you put it, yucks someone's yum and tears down a movie that people like. I would rather lift up a movie that most people haven't seen or people have gotten a bad reputation or something like that. Like the first ever movie we covered was Speed Racer.
Yes! I was wondering, I was going to ask if you did Speed Racer. That is the underrated movie.
Yeah, it had to be the first thing we covered. That was way in the old days. That episode is rough to listen to, but the more recent ones, including the one with Mike, they're very good. So yeah, check out Underrated Movie Podcast on all the apps. And then if I do a couple other things as well. I write for Watch Mojo. I write for Film Threat doing film reviews. I also host another podcast with my friend Damien called the Midnight Film Society. But definitely Underrated is the main thing.
And episode 131 was the one that Mike guest starred on, and it was really surreal because to hear Mike. You had such an academic take on the movie, Mike. You're dissecting the color theory and the symbolism and the way it's shot. And like, Derek, I'm used to Mike bringing Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, zombie strippers, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Like, Mike loves a good dumpster fire. So I kind of forgot he also has good taste in movies. He just chooses to enjoy everything at the buffet. But Mike, I thought you did a great job.
I mean, I think there's a quote from Roger Ebert that is something like, there's nothing like the enjoyment of a bad movie.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I completely agree.
When they're done in an earnest way, those can still be, I will definitely defend some of those.
Yeah. And it's something I talk about a lot on my show, but I really appreciate something that is like an admirable failure much more than something where it's like Madam Web, where it's like who cares? Like people are just doing this for the paycheck. Nobody has any passion for Madam Web. But something like, I don't know, like Sucker Punch, which is like a weird, bizarre movie, but like they were trying, they were going for something there,
I was gonna ask if you'd had a Sucker Punch episode. Like that's another movie where I walked out and like I was so jazzed, and everyone else in my friend group was real down on it. I'm like, did we see the same movie?
Mm-hmm.
I think I specifically remember not saying what I thought about that movie until you really pushed me, because we walked out of that and you were riding a high on that, and I'm just like, gonna be quiet.
Dang.
Oh yeah, Sucker Punch. I'll stand by it. I think that movie's awesome.
I can pinpoint the exact moment where the movie loses me, which is when the radio in Malfunctioning slows down.
Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. You're dead inside. Look,
it's a radio.
I know that's not how radios work. Okay, I get it. Yeah, but unreliable narrator, and that's my defense for everything. Well, guys, I know we'll have a lot to say, so let's develop our thoughts on today's game, shall we? You guys ready?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so today let's talk about Pokemon Snap on the Nintendo 64, released in 1999. According to the description on the Nintendo Switch Online emulator, it says catching Pokemon, TM, is a snap. Travel to Pokemon Island and meet Professor Oak to begin a safari to take the best possible photographs of 63 different Pokemon. The islands have many types of climates and environments to explore, along with secret activities and hidden passages to discover. It's a little illicit. Some of the Pokemon can be a little shy and won't pose for the camera unless you tease them with special items. Somebody was in a mood when they were writing this description. After you're done, submit one picture of each Pokemon to Professor Oak, and he'll judge it based on size, pose, technique, and number of Pokemon captured. Start practicing if you want to snap the perfect shot. I'm sorry, guys. Keep it classy, Mike. That got a little off the rails for me. I try not to read those ahead of time so I can.
Was
have a
off
live
the rails
reaction to it.
also a joke on your part, or was that just...
Well, we'll get to the rails. I love the rails in this game.
It's like those tasteful nudes that Kate McKinnon was sending to Steven Spielberg.
Tasteful. Yeah, that's not what we're known for on this podcast. Not at all. So let's start with the box art, because oftentimes people's first impressions of these games back in the day was seeing the box on the store shelves. For people who aren't watching this on YouTube, let me describe it for you. On both the Japanese and the North American box, you've got a picture of a camera lens dead center with the Pokemon sort of arranged around it and the big Pokemon Snap logo. A lot of similarities between these two covers. What's your guys' take on this? What's your feelings about this one?
I think this is a pretty cool cover. I like it. It really does a good job of conveying like what the game is about, while also just kind of feeling like a unique cover, getting that pop. Yeah. I always kind of like, to me, I guess it's not what it is, but when I was a kid, I thought it looked like the Pokemon were getting sucked into the camera lens.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of how I always took it. Maybe that's, I'm misreading that, but I liked it. And it's also like, you're like, as a kid, seeing these Pokemon and it's like pixelated, they don't look good by today's standards, but having only seen them like in like a 2D image, being like, whoa, these Pokemon are in 3D now. Like, this is, I think, before Stadium. So like, it was really one of the first times you could see that, and to see that on the cover, you're like, whoa, this is Pokemon like I haven't seen them before. And probably get more than that when talking about the game itself, but just based on that cover, that's really enticing.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. This was the first game to have polygonal models of the Pokemon. So that is a big draw. And I like how prominently it's featured here. I always read it as them popping out of the lens, but your take makes more sense because you're capturing the picture of them. Mike, do you see them coming out or going in?
I think they're just sideways around it. Like, I don't actually...
Twirling. Always twirling.
Does that count as our political humor for the episode?
We get political every episode at some point.
Yeah. No, I kind of didn't think of them as being either pulled in or ejected from it.
Just around.
Yeah. I do enjoy, because it's actually impressive. I think it's almost all the same core assets here, with the exception of the US had Eevee and Squirtle on the side.
Right.
But I think I like the Japanese cover better, because the Japanese cover shows the lens more. And I like on the Japanese cover, you can see that the lens has writing on it that lists it as Pokemon lens
50 millimeters,
and then has Nintendo 64 on it.
Made in Japan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a little sad moment when I was like, well, both the Japanese and the North American one, the Pocket Monster or Pokemon Snap, it's like written on like a film reel. And I'm like, do kids even know what film reels are anymore? I don't know. I do think it was a good call though to include Squirtle and Eevee, because I don't know how you guys were growing up, but like if my boy Bulbasaur wasn't in the game, I'm not getting the game. Like that's my representation. We talked about this last episode. Mike was a Squirtle boy. I was Bulbasaur. Derek, are you Charmander kid?
Oh man, I think I was, because I was like, I wanted to give myself a challenge, and like Brock was too easy with Squirtle and Bulbasaur, so I was like, I gotta really give myself a like. And also just like maybe he's a little bit oversaturated now, but Charizard is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great design. You can't go wrong with that. Well, so let me give you some trivia on the game. It was published by Nintendo and developed by HAL Laboratories. They were the makers of the Kirby series, which Mike and I covered in season 1. We did Kirby's Adventure, Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Dream Land 2, but we'll have more of those coming up. And I always try to find a game in the developer's backlog that I think is kind of interesting and perhaps overlooked. I think, Derek, you'd appreciate that. So I picked up Part-Time UFO last night. Have you guys heard of this game?
No.
No.
Freaking, I'm addicted. I'm obsessed with it. I stayed up way too late. It was a mobile game from 2018 that got a Switch port. And the premise is that you play as this cute little UFO with a like claw machine from like the arcade, like that arm. And your task is to use your arm to help people complete odd jobs. And so it's a physics-based puzzle game, but really, really fun. It's got two-player co-op, and the cool part about it is that as soon as you solve a puzzle, it goes, okay, here's a harder mode we made just to kind of frustrate you. So like the things you have to grab get smaller, or the place you have to drop them gets much more narrow. It's $9, but I definitely recommend it if anyone's looking for a nice little kind of lower the blood pressure kind of puzzle game. Mike is tilting his head like a cat. What are you looking at there, Mike? Staring at
The
the image of part-time UFO.
Greeks off the side of the earth.
Yeah, the construction hat wearing Greek statues.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's just a really good time.
Cool.
So the makers of this game have sort of an interesting history. The intro cutscene. I don't know. Did you guys watch the intro cutscene to Pokemon Snap?
All the time.
Yeah, it features your main character Todd Snap walking through the bushes. You can hear his footsteps crunching through the leaves,
Wait, wait,
and
wait,
then you
wait, wait,
see
wait, 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 wait. The
yes, Mike,
main character, Todd Snap.
Todd Snap. You got a problem? Because that's his name. Don't get mad at me.
Okay, the manual just calls him Todd.
No, it's
Yes.
Todd Snap. It's
Okay.
can verify.
So interestingly, the first version manuals printed it as Todd. A release in, I believe, the PAL region called him Snap. So to just make everybody win, the official name is Todd Snap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we now know where the manual I looked at is from.
There you go. You got a first run. So as he's stalking through the bushes to try to get a picture of Mew, the name Jack and Beans is very prominently displayed. Do you guys know why and what that means?
As of this morning, I do because I read the Wikipedia page.
Pretty interesting. So I'll give it to Mike because he looks a bit confused. Pokemon Snap was originally a Jack and the Beanstalk game. It was going to be released for the Nintendo 64 DD. It is an ill-fated peripheral that only came out in Japan. It was a disk drive that you would attach to the bottom of the system, a la the Sega Genesis with its 32X Sega CD expansions. And it enabled the N64 to have higher sound quality, full motion videos, limited online gameplay, and most importantly for this discussion, it would have a persistent clock. So even when you turned off the system, it would still keep track of time. And so the Jack and the Beanstalk game presumably would have had you growing beanstalk seeds in real time. And as the beanstalk grows higher and higher over the course of days and weeks, you get to explore more and more levels. And in that game, there was a photography element, but the developers didn't know why anyone would want to use it. They were kind of struggling with like, why would they take pictures of? And then when it became obvious the 64DD was a flop, they switched the IP over to Pokemon and focused solely on the picture taking. I always love showing Mike new peripherals. Have you heard of this one, Mike?
No. It's an interesting naming convention choice.
The D, you mean?
Yes.
Disk drive.
Yeah, I understand why it's disk drive.
Oh, okay. I don't understand the joke. Is it double D thing? Is that like how you?
I mean, it may be confused with the cinematic classic Piranha 3 to Double D.
In which case, it was exactly what I was thinking it was.
Yes. I do feel like we lost something when somehow game developers decided that consoles shouldn't work like Voltron.
Yeah.
Right.
It was.
Because I've heard of it before. I've never seen a picture of it. Because I think like I think Majora's Mask was maybe originally developed for the same thing, or like Master Quest. But yeah, like just see them stacked on top of each other like that is
Yeah.
kind of wild.
Feels like an AI tried to generate a picture of an N64 and didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
There was hype for this thing, and I remember just getting delayed after delayed, and I was reading Game Pro magazine.
Oh, those would be the two Ds, delayed after delayed.
There you go, Mike. Very clever. He gets one of these every episode. Well, so Mike, speaking of getting stuff for you, even the system, the DD expansion had 9 games. That's it. But 2 of them are extremely Mike coded, so I want to share them with you. One of them was the F-Zero X expansion kit, which not only added more levels and racers, but you could design your own racer and your own track deciding where the loops and the gaps and everything are, using, and you could actually like set angles. It was one of the greatest track editors of all time. And another game it got was SimCity 64, which would have been the first SimCity game to actually let you go down on street level and see your city from civilian perspective.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't that kind of neat? I mean,
Cool.
there's footage of it because it was released in Japan.
Was that just like a free camera that you could explore it with, or was that like you're bound to the ground, like traveling around?
I'll be honest, I'm not 100% on this, but my understanding is that you would like click on certain things, like for example, the bottom left, you click on a train. Now you're seeing the train's perspective as it goes through your city. Click on like a civilian, you see their perspective. I don't think you could explore like 3D, but it would just set the camera wherever. But I thought that was cool. I thought that was neat. So the next little piece of trivia I got for you is the Blockbuster promotion.
I remember this.
Remember this, Derek? Did you ever use
Yes.
it? It's the Pokemon. You used it? I never did.
I did not. I never used it. I would see them all the time. I played it, but I never got to like print out anything.
So is
Yeah.
this officially what would be considered a Pokemon Snap station?
This is one. Yes. Why are you asking? Is there a joke I'm not getting?
No, because the last page of the manual is specifically the Pokemon Snap stations and has a phone number you can call for locations that I haven't tried calling because that's a weird format for that number.
It's gonna be someone's cell phone number now. So for those of you who aren't aware, the listeners, the youngins, there used to be a place called video stores. You used to have to go and rent movies in person, and you could also rent games. And so Nintendo created these Pokemon Snap stations where you would bring. Was it your Pokemon Snap cartridge, or would you bring your memory card, or either? Maybe.
I think it was the cartridge, I want to say.
It says your game pack.
Okay, so that would be the memory card then. It was referred to as the game pack, I think. But anyway, so you'd plug in something you brought from home, and you could print your favorite Pokemon Snap pictures as a sticker sheet for $3 a sheet. And I always remember seeing it, but I didn't have the game at the time. And by the time I got the game, they took these things down.
Yeah.
It is, though, these kiosks, these Blockbuster video kiosks are some of the highest in demand Pokemon collector's item. There is only one on eBay right now. This is a picture of it. And I'm curious if you guys can guess what it's going for. Let's do a little Price is Right thing. How much you think the asking price is? Not the bid, the asking price. And I forget how Price is Right rules works. It's like if you go over, you lose. Is that what it is?
It's closest without going over.
Closest without going over. Okay. So Mike, what's your bid for this lovely Pokemon Snap Station kiosk, fully functional?
Oh, it's tricky. I can't just go $1 because then Derek will just $2 me and win. So
taking this way too seriously.
I am going to guess. Let's see. It's got a functioning screen.
I think he's checking on a different screen right now. I think he's cheating.
He's cheating. No, we would never accuse you of such underhanded tactics.
He wouldn't. I would.
Yeah. Let's see. This has what appears to be like a Charizard sculpture on top. Powers up. I think the controller comes with it. Like just the controller's got to be worth some. I am going to go $2,300.
Okay, $2,300. Derek?
I'll go $2,301.
Actual asking price is $7,000.
Well, okay, I was gonna say 5. That was gonna be my guess if I wasn't being a little shit. But
yeah, $7,000. That's how rare these things are.
wow,
Isn't that wild? So this game features 63 Pokemon, and that haunted me as a kid. You get where I'm going, Derek?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So why? And this is the age of 64. Mario Kart 64, Dr. Mario 64. Why 63? And the popular theory is this Pokemon I'm showing you right here. Ekans was fully featured in the pre-release footage. And this is the Pokemon that does not make an appearance in the game, even though the assets are there. So there's no official story as to what happened to Ekans, but Game Rant theorizes that Ekans was cut to save memory because Ekans only appears in pre-release footage that has drastically worse graphics for the environment. So the popular theory is that when they made the environments look better, Ekans' file, the motions for him were probably so intricate that he became more memory than he was worth keeping.
Which like makes sense because I don't know if you guys ever played like Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl when you could have the Pokemon walk behind you, and there's that famous clip of like Ekans walking behind you, and it's just he's still coiled up, just sliding on the ground. like that. So I can imagine that, yeah, like you said, it would be hard to animate him slithering around and not do it the lazy way like they did with Diamond and Pearl
I
remake.
mean, they could have just made him not move, but that was sort of like, ruin it. Like you hit him with a pester
Yeah.
ball. I mean, I don't know. There's ways around it, but that's the popular theory. According to Game Rant. You mentioned the games where you can walk around with your Pokemon. Did you either of you play Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee?
No, I did not. I was not about to get another remake of Red and Blue.
It's lovely. It's
Is
it's
it?
the
Okay.
kind of baby's first Pokemon game, but
That's
it's
kind of
it's
the
real.
vibe I had for it. I'm like, man, I'm in my 30s. I'm gonna play Arceus.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But my favorite part about it was that you could have any of the Pokemon follow you. And if
Mhm.
you asked Snorlax to follow you, I was thinking like, how is this going to work? Is he going to slow me down? He does the walking and you cling to his belly like a little koala clinging to a tree. And now you're just Snorlax walking around with the player
That's
character.
cool.
It's so cute. I
That's pretty
love it.
good. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So the protagonist, Todd Snap, Mike, he played a supporting role in several episodes of the Pokemon animated series,
Mhm.
but it's probably his introduction to the series that is the most infamous. It was the episode Pokemon Paparazzi. Did you guys ever see the cartoon episodes with him in it?
Oh yeah, I watched. Like 'cause he was like on it for like a whole arc. I feel like
Yeah, he has like I think 5 or 6 or 7 episodes. Like he hung around.
he was like the third companion for a little bit. I want to say,
Yeah,
or maybe he replaced Block. It's been decades since I watched it, but I remember him.
and it's cute because he gets pulled in because Meowth overhears that this kid can catch any Pokemon in the world. Doesn't hear the on film part.
Yeah.
But so his introduction to the main protagonist is kind of dark because Ash sees what he thinks is the glint of a sniper rifle in the bushes. And then the show depicts his imagination of seeing his friends, including Pikachu and the infant Togepi, being gunned down. This is a picture I'm showing you of the characters being shot in Ash's imagination. So Ash tackles them to the floor to, in his mind, save their life, and they just get mad that they ruined lunch and don't even really like, humor the idea that maybe there is a gunman in the bushes.
Did they change that for you? Because I feel like that always happens with like
The
four
four
kids and stuff.
kids.
Like it would be just like Bandit Keith pointing his fingers at like Pegasus's head and stuff. Yeah.
That's so wild.
I wonder if they changed it.
I watched a supercut this morning of
Mm-hmm.
Sonic X censorship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that Sonic anime gets almost Evangelion-esque at points in the Japanese version.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty wild. But Derek, to your credit, I don't remember this happening. I don't have the
Mhm.
best nerd memory, but I got pretty good nerd memory.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this didn't make it to North American shores
Okay.
here. Well, so let's get to Pokemon Snap. We're going to go over the Joy Pros and the Joy Cons.
One question, slightly more generally.
Okay.
So, you and I have talked about our introduction to Pokemon basically being when the first game came out.
Yeah.
Derek, when did you get onto the Pokemon train?
Yeah, so same thing. I was kind of one of the early adopters of Pokemon. I just remember I had a couple friends who were really into it on the playground because I'm absolutely the right age to get into. I would have been 8 when it came out in the US. So I was playing Pokemon. I think I had both Red and Blue. I had both, and I think I had Red first. And yeah, just playing that on the playground with my friends, trying to catch them all, and then of course getting into the cards, getting into shows, and getting into the spin-off games.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lifestyle, really.
Yeah, and I'm still playing Pokemon to this day. I've got like my Pokemon home. I've got almost all. I still need to recomplete my decks now with the new expansions that have come out. But I've got almost everything.
Who's your favorite Pokemon? Actually, mine's Snorlax. I want to know both of yours.
Probably my favorite is Ralts. I love Ralts.
So is that the psychic one?
Yeah, he's the little psychic guy and now he's like a psychic fairy. He's got the horns
Yeah.
on his head.
Yeah.
I always want to say Gardevoir, but that gives people the wrong idea if they especially don't Google like Gardevoir ever. So I say his first form, little cute Ralts. I'll go with
Yeah,
that.
keep it classy.
Yeah.
Mike, do you have a favorite Pokemon?
I don't know if I necessarily do. I think because of Pokemon Go, Tentacruel has sort of grown on me because that was my first perfect IV Pokemon in Pokemon Go.
You might be the world's only Tentacruel fan. That's amazing.
No,
I'm
I'm
so
not.
happy with that.
I know I'm
No?
not because they've given like the CEO or something of Niantic has gotten flack because he's shown bits of like him playing the game and like his buddy in the game is a Tentacruel and people are just like, the heck are you doing, man?
That is wild.
So there's an element of that.
That's funny.
The other one that may be on there, just because I think it's neat and I still have around, is I think I'd almost kind of say Carnivine, which in Pokemon Go is a regional Pokemon to the southeast. And so I have a whole bunch of them from when I lived in Tennessee. And up until a month ago, I enjoyed that because I could put those in gyms whenever I traveled. And those only showed up in the southeast of the US. You had no other way to have one.
So you're making some people jealous by setting those up in the gym.
I had been, and now they made it so that you can get those out of like hatching eggs wherever.
Yeah, because if I remember right, during the pandemic, they opened it up so you don't have to travel the world and get on airplanes. Like,
oh no, this is just like a month ago. They've kind of done this every so often, and I think it's because they missed what should have been doable in Pokemon Go, and so I think this is to account for that. We'll come back to Pokemon Snap at some point, I promise. Pokemon Go.
I'm used to it. This is what you do.
Yeah. Pokemon Go has the ability to trade Pokemon, but a Pokemon can only be traded a single time.
Right.
What should have happened, there was a community set up in advance of Pokemon Go, and in advance of trading being an actual system that was set up, called the Sylph Road, which is an amazing name.
As opposed to the Silk Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things involved there was to get information and, in theory, Pokemon flowing between regions. And really what they should have done is made it so that the regional Pokemon could be traded 3 times, because the other things you can only do a special trade, like giving someone a Pokemon they don't have once a day. They should have had it so that a Pokemon can be traded up to 3 times, so that, say, I travel between the US and Australia. I should be able to load up with American regional Pokemon, fly to another country, meet my contact there, and offload like 30
like the deep throat of Pokemon meeting your contact.
Yeah. I should be able to engage. Remember, he's like, I told you, he's like, oh, I'm skullduggery, I'm a scoundrel. You wanted to do a smuggling run, is what you want.
He's like smuggling. It's perfectly legal.
He's like Donald Sutherland in JFK. But
yeah, I should have been able to do that and then get loaded up on Australian Pokemon that I would bring back and hand off to people, and the American Pokemon could be handed off there. And so you could actually get this thing where people are meeting up because you actually have effectively trade routes of a sort, instead of this one person to one person kind of deal that limits it a bit. Right. Especially when it's because it's travel. It's like, I don't have like, oh yeah, we'll just do this every day for a week. It's like, I may only be here for a day.
You've been thinking about this a lot.
It's always felt like this giant missed opportunity.
Well, so do you have a segue back into Pokemon Snap, or should I just dive us in?
Let's pretend there was a segue and go from that point.
You'll add it in post. Because for those who aren't watching on YouTube, I've been staring at the picture of Pikachu and Togepi being shot for like the last 5 minutes. I kind of want to get this off my screen. So let's go into what we like about Pokemon Snap on the Nintendo 64, the Joy Pros. Derek, can I pass it to you to praise this game first?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I already talked about how when I was a kid, I was very excited for this because, you know, the first big thing was like, this was Pokemon not on your Game Boy, not walking around like just, you know, playing by yourself, but on the big screen, like seeing Pokemon, not just kind of like the back or front sprites, but like out in the real world, and you getting to interact with them, you know, getting to take pictures of them was so cool. And you knew you would do stuff like you would toss the apple at them, or you would do things like, I just still like, I think of you had to do all these things to, like, you start with a Charman and you hit him over here into this volcano, becomes a Charmeleon, and you throw him into this volcano, and then he comes like you have all the steps you'd have to do, all the different intricate things. It was just really cool. It was also like a unique game. Like it's basically an on-rails shooter like Time Split or something like that. But instead of like shooting like Todd in Ash's Imagination, you're the actual Todd and shooting Pokemon, you know, on film. Right. Which is cool because it's like a photography game, but it's like this fantasy photography game, getting to shoot the coolest things that you would never get to shoot in actual reality, which is Pokemon. And I was like a kid with a candy box, you know, like, or in a candy store, just like getting to enjoy the world of Pokemon in a way I never had before.
Yeah, and it's like how you always imagined it would be, and you've seen it on the cartoon, but like, you know, you're describing the original Game Boy games, which would have been the only ones out at this point. And in fact, I think when Pokemon Snap was released, even Gold and Silver hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
So, you know, Pokemon's representation in video games was a single still image. they didn't even animate. And you do like the fire attack, and there'd be like a little flame that would come out of the still JPEG of Charizard.
Right.
So to see them chasing each other and roaring and flying, it was like this. It's when I saw Jurassic Park, it was a transformational moment because I was like, that's what dinosaurs look like.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Yeah.
a dinosaur. That's not a movie dinosaur. That's what it would really look like if it was chasing me. And that's how I feel about this game. Like that's Eevee. It felt so real.
And I was just gonna say too, you brought up like the opening cinematic, which I think that is really smart and really draws you in a lot because you see like this guy and he's like crouching and he's trying to take these pictures. And then in that opening cinematic, you see for a second Mew. You see like him trying to take a picture of Mew, and he just gets a picture of like his tail or his foot or whatever. And you're like, really? Because Mew as a kid was my favorite. I was like, oh my god, there's like this one Mew. Even at that point was like it was mythical. I know it's a mythical Pokemon. It was just like your friend is like you would have like my uncle works at Nintendo. He says you got to go behind a truck. Like nobody knew how to get him. And then to like see him in this game before almost any of us had seen him in the mainline games was so cool. And that just built up. And you're like, when am I going to get to see Mew? And that last level where it's literally just you trying to take a picture of Mew and he's in that little bubble and you have to throw the orbs at him. It really does a good job of just like in a short wordless animation making you so enticed to get through this game and to get to that final stage.
Speaking of the final stage, let's take care of this now. Derek, have you beaten this game?
I have. I beat this game as a kid a few times over.
You Nintendo did.
Family computer.
Mike, what about you?
I mean, what counts as beating this game?
I think rolling credits is fair for this one.
Which credits?
Explain. I thought the one just after you get your picture of Mew, that doesn't it roll credits?
It does roll credits then, and I did do that.
All right, wait, hold on. So you Nintendo did.
Family computer.
All right.
And then once you get all 63 Pokemon, it triggers another set of credits.
Ooh, you Super Nintendo did.
Family computer.
And I Nintendo did as well.
Family computer.
But I think this is the first game that, first of all, I think everyone beat it. Good job, boys. But also, they might beat it more than I know as a kid, I got all 63. I did not get all 63 in my playthrough for this. Do you remember how the credits are different?
Not specifically, but you can check this out because I did this all in one sitting on Twitch.
That's fun.
Oh.
Yeah. You speed ran it, just not very quickly.
I mean, that's about how I approach all running.
So Derek was talking about how like you have these items that trigger different interactions with the Pokemon. And one of my favorite genres is Metroidvania. And so I thought it's really clever that this game kind of has some Metroidvania DNA in it because the first time you go through on the beach level 1, you don't have any tools. It's just you and your camera. And then after a couple of runs and you get some points taking pictures of Pokemon, you get the apple. The apple can be used to lure Pokemon closer to you to get a better picture. But it also, all the tools have multiple uses. So like you can put an apple equidistant between two different Pokemon and now they're fighting for the food. And now that's a different picture worth a different amount of points.
You can also hit them with it, which is
yes,
I was gonna say is satisfying. And I think they didn't appreciate how satisfying that would be at the time of this game. And I say that to contrast in the new Pokemon Snap, when you get the food, it makes it a point where it's like, this looks like an apple, but it's a lot lighter. And it specifically says that, like, my plan is I'm going to be hitting a lot of Pokemon with things. And I think they did that because they're like, we need to make it clear that this isn't hurting Pokemon, because otherwise this is going to seem wrong.
There was a thing about throwing apples in video games back in like the 90s. Because there was Aladdin, there was Castle of Illusion. Like, I feel like the apple was a strangely common projectile. Probably because it's a pretty good projectile. Not that I'm endorsing that. If you're my student, do not throw an apple at me on Monday. I don't think any of my students have found this yet. And in the Poke Flute, that's an item from the games, it's from the show. And so that just gets the Pokemon to, it kind of works them up. So if you do it with a Pikachu, it'll get him to shock the thing in front of him. It'll get Snorlax to wake up and dance. But I was impressed at just, to this day, how many different interactions every little Pokemon has. They felt very dynamic in that way. Mike, what do you like about this game?
I mean, I think it's just there's something very enjoyable about it. I mean, I guess this does in some way foreshadow me having a fairly decent interest in photography.
Okay.
I think to some extent it is also just interesting in that this is, to me, the first thing that I associate as is really it's Pokemon, but it's not Pokemon where the point is battling. Like the manual makes the point, like the reason they get taught is like if we brought in a Pokemon trainer, they would want to catch the Pokemon, and that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And that's because most of the Pokemon sort of depiction is ultimately fighting one way or another. It's either leading up to that or that. So it's interesting to see things that break from it.
Yeah.
There's also like the recent stop motion show that's on, I think, Netflix.
Pokemon Resort. Have you watched it?
Yeah.
It was Pokemon Concierge.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
She works at the Pokemon Resort.
Yeah.
Pokemon Concierge. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I cried.
It's
I
great.
cried.
It's great. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, and just that same deal of just like, yeah, no, this is just their Pokemon, and we're kind of just hanging with them. There's no fighting.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what makes the Pokemon franchise so special is that like it feels like a fully realized world in the way that like Mario doesn't necessarily. Which is probably why we got the Pokemon live action movie before we got the full length, Mario animated movie. And I'm not talking about Mike's favorite movie with Bob Hoskins. Okay. I am a defender of that movie too.
Covered it on Underrated. The
Oh,
original.
of course you did, Derek. I'm going to become obsessed with you. Be careful, dude. So do you guys have a favorite Pokemon moment from this game? If I can share mine first, by far my favorite moment is knocking Magikarp into the waterfall to turn him into Gyarados, because it's so cinematic. It's like the way that the timing of the river works out as you hit the Magikarp, you see him skipping, and then he goes into the waterfall flashes white, and then Gyarados just comes out of the waterfall like the dinosaurs on the Jurassic Park ride. It looms over you and it screams at you. And I didn't know until researching this, that whole moment is actually inspired by a Chinese myth. According to Did You Know Gaming, there is the Dragon's Gate, which is a waterfall on the Yellow River in China. And legend has it that if a carp can swim up to the top, they will achieve divinity and become a dragon.
Huh.
Yeah, so like that's pretty cool. Do you guys have a
cool.
favorite Pokemon moment or interaction with them in the game?
The two that come to mind have an odd theme to them. One is Charmander River Dance.
Okay. Getting all the Charmanders to come to the edge and
then dance. Yeah.
with the Poke Flute? Is that what you do?
Yeah. You lure them all in, and then that.
What do they do? I don't think I've ever done that one.
They all dance.
Like, is it sure? Okay, thank you.
They like it's like they're think like river dance, where it's just them like all kind of.
Oh, my brain said river dance, like they dance at the edge of the lava river. You mean river dance, like the '90s phenomenon thing?
Yeah. They're kind of basically. It feels very line dancey.
That's rad. I gotta try that.
Yeah, I mean, how do you have like that is your that is my best picture of them, because it's like, well, they're dancing and there's also like six.
Right. So then is your other favorite one the Snorlax one?
No, I would say the other favorite one, there's a whole process that I enjoy to it, and I need to get better at it, is Jigglypuff.
Oh, being chased by coughing?
No, so you have Jigglypuff being chased by coughing. If you hit the coughing goes away. The Jigglypuff is very grateful, and then another Jigglypuff being chased by another coughing shows up, and
I think there's 3 you can save.
Yeah, if you save at least one, when you reach the end of the level, there's like a stage off to the side, like a natural stage in the cave that the Jigglypuff is singing on, and you basically end up with like backup dancers if you save the others.
Yeah, they like harmonize.
And what is particularly fun, when I started down this, I forgot that I discovered this, is if you play the Poke Flute when you're going by, Jigglypuff gets mad.
She gets mad because you're interrupting the concert.
Oh
That's
my gosh,
precious.
I forgot about that.
That is 100%, I think, a thing I did not know until I did that my last playthrough. It's like, makes sense. I did not expect that additional interaction.
And it's so well thought out. Like, every Pokemon fan knows Jigglypuff hates being interrupted. So there's those little touches that make this feel real.
Yeah, and I think you guys are really hitting on it, because that's what made this game so special, is that you could try all these different things, and it's like, okay, well, if I do this with this Pokemon, what will happen? And so my answer is the one I kind of alluded to earlier, which is when you finally get the Charizard, because you have to start with Charmander, and then any Pokemon fan knows Pokemon, so a lot of Pokemon evolve more than once, including, of course, the starters. So you have to start with Charmander, evolve him into Charmeleon, and then evolve and then knock the Charmeleon like into the volcano. And then that cinematic moment where like it's just like the volcano just like erupts and just like you see Charizard just come out.
Yeah.
That for me was it's such an accomplishment because it's so hard to do. And, excuse me, and then you're like, oh cool, click. I got it. I got to take a picture of a freaking Charizard. It's so rewarding.
You just blew my mind. It's such a small thing, but I never in my head connected that that is the same Charmeleon from earlier in the level that you made evolve by, I think, fighting Magmar or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that you make him fight Magmar, that
Mhm,
evolves him into Charmeleon, then you knock the Charmeleon into the lava.
mhm.
All right, so Mike, I know is with me, big like theme park buff. Are you a theme park boy, Derek?
Oh yeah, I live like right down the road from Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm.
Oh, so you have season passes, I'll bet.
Yep, yep.
This, I think that the photography is great, but to me, this game's real draw is that this is a Pokemon theme park. Every
Mhm.
one of these levels is a very well crafted dark ride, in the sense that there's stuff to see at all angles. You're never overwhelmed. They do a good job of building story moments like you're talking about, of seeing this Charmander through the course of the level get stronger and stronger until eventually the Charizard screaming in your face as it rises up. Like there's so many moments where I'm like, I can picture the animatronic that this would be. And I think a thing that theme park buffs know is that like a good dark ride has really good pacing. When you've been on a bad dark ride, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where it's just there's just a slow slog and it doesn't have a momentum. And every single one of these, I think, are just a banger, with the possible exception of the last level, but that's more of a stylistic choice. You're just on a big rainbow cloud. And it's more just a moment with you and Mew than it is a full real level.
Is it worth us talking about each of these levels briefly, like of our thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm game. Yeah. So we got the level select screen here on YouTube. I'm starting with the beach. Todd Snap kind of starts by the shore and then sort of makes his way through estuaries, going between bushes until eventually ending with an encounter with Kangaskhan.
I think on that one of the things that I like about that takes a while to sort of figure out that you can do that. You start with a lot of Pokemon that are very much like in your face. It's Pidgeys flying right past you kind of stuff.
Yeah, the duo jumps out into the track.
And then at some point, you can realize that there is a Lapras like off in the distance out in the ocean. And the idea that with that, you sort of gradually accumulate your Lapras sightings until you can get a close encounter. But it's for the longest time, that was the best of a Lapras. It's like, am I really just going to have some blurry off in the distance picture of a Lapras and that's it? But it really makes this feel like a large world.
Yeah, and people have said that the Lapras imagery is very evocative of pictures of Loch Ness,
Yeah.
because it's this blurry, far off thing, and you just see like come out of the water.
And also, just want to say real fast that, like, looking, here at the, because you've got the limited amount of levels, you're here on the Pokemon Island, but it's all these different things. It reminds me of, like, when the science books that you had as a kid, where it's like all the different biomes, they're all in one
Yes.
spot. That's what this
Oh,
Pokemon Island was.
what were those called? Like World Book, the animal books or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and you would see like it's like here's like the fjords and here's the coast and here's the volcano and the Sahara. They'd all be like in one, place, like in one picture that couldn't like somebody drew that could never actually exist. And it felt like you were getting to get to go you were going into that with Pokemon.
Yeah. Tunnel is a sort of power plant themed level. You're going through this dark tunnel and there are these generators. There's lots of electrode, electabuzzes. This is where you see Zapdos. If you awaken it by making Pikachu shock its egg, you have a big Zapdos reveal. And this has my favorite Pokemon sign. Talking about like the levels themselves are part of the draw. Every level has a naturally occurring sort of landmark that, if viewed from the right angle, kind of looks like a Pokemon. And sometimes it's super obvious, like Doug Trio Mountain. I don't know if
Yeah.
you had to do, I don't even know if you had to do like the full Doug Trio face, but Tunnel has my favorite Pokemon sign, which is the garbage that will make it look like the shadow of the garbage is a pincer on the wall. Because the light is shining and from the perfect angle, all the things will line up to make the shadow be a pincer. Or I guess the shadow is always the pincer. The shadows don't change when you're changed. Anyway, yeah.
I think this one's interesting in that I feel like of any of them, this is the one that I will benefit on the timing of things by deliberately slowing down. So you're on this rail, and it does allow you to speed up but not slow down. However, and the manual says that it has something to make it stop so that you don't hit a Pokemon. I 100% always just imagine it as you straight up ran into a Pokemon.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's like an Electabuzz very early on that you can just kind of hit
Yeah.
a lot to slow you down, which later on means that you have the Kakuna that drop down.
Yeah.
And you can affect how good of a shot you can get at them by basically slowing yourself down by repeatedly pelting an Electabuzz. So apparently the car stops so you don't run it over.
Yeah, it's a creepy. I mean, people have died that way at actual theme parks, but it's like, hey, knock something out in front of your, clog up the track with a Pokemon body to get the best shot. We talked about Volcano already. That's the lava themed level with the Charmanders, the Rapidash running past you. I love that moment.
Yeah.
It's got a really great theme song to it. So I'll kind of go through that one since we already talked about it. River is a very beautiful kind of jungle where you've got Hollywags kind of running down the slopes and jumping in. This is the Bulbasaur level.
River's always been odd. I think I find it frustrating in that so much of River relies on water Pokemon that you basically get to jump out of the water, and it feels very tough to re-trigger that when you want.
Yeah. I mean, if there was one Joy-Con level, I think it'd be River. I think that's the one I tend to have the least fun on because, like you said, the shots can feel frustrating on that one.
Actually, the Metapods, again, enough hitting that you hit into things. I did get my really good shot from that by realizing that I could hit a Metapod down in front of me to stop me and then turn around and hit a Metapod behind me and get a nice close-up.
Like, it's whatever it takes to get the shot, right? Isn't that a saying?
Yeah.
Cave, we also talked about briefly. That's the one with the Jigglypuff interactions.
Take only photographs, leave only concussions.
There we go.
Leave only apples.
I hope you're quoting something. You didn't just make that up. But Cave has my favorite finale because I don't know if you guys at the end of that level ever turned around, but Articuno will make its surprise appearance towards the end, like it's saying goodbye to you. It's really beautiful.
That, as a 9-year-old, blew my mind. I was no freaking way, Articuno.
Yeah. So you can awaken Articuno by making the Jinx do like their ritual, and it awakens the bird, and it's a great moment, but you don't ever really get a good center shot of it. And so there's nothing to tell you it does this, but as you leave the level, if you turn around and look at the track you were just on, Articuno will start to fly towards you in this really perfectly framed shot with like its wings flapping and purple dust flying. It's a really cool moment.
Oh, I know what I'm doing after this podcast because I need a good shot of that, and it's frustrating me.
Yeah, yep. See, that's why. And then my favorite level was
I was going to say Cave is also fun because that introduces the Dittos, which was something that, coming back to it, number one, I do like that if you haven't undittified them, I'm going to call
it counts as a Bulbasaur picture.
It counts as a Bulbasaur picture. I like that it's just like, that's a Bulbasaur, and it's like, that's not a Bulbasaur. I know that. And I feel like you should know that. Like, the eyes give this away, dang it. So that is, like, I appreciate that. But I mean, I think it may have just the most that it feels like this is going on in just general interactions. Yeah. That it feels like almost every Pokemon, there is a fairly meaningful interaction there. Like, I spent a lot of time and then figured out that I was not doing what I needed to be doing, trying to get a Muck out of there because you have Grimers that are a pain to reach.
I was just going to ask, can you make Grimer evolve into Muck?
Yes.
Okay, you just had to get that perfect long shot and hit it with something?
No.
What do you do?
I can't remember offhand now what it was. You actually have to basically, I think you may have to do something to both of those to trigger an additional Grimer that shows up in a more easily reached platform.
And do they combine into a Muck?
No. It's just that one. It's just, you've got two Grimers that are off in the distance that I kept trying to turn into Mucks and it wasn't working. And it turns out that I had to do something slightly different, which meant that later on in the level, there would be a Grimer in closer range.
In a way, aren't we all just trying to turn our Grimers into Mucks? You guys? There's an analogy somewhere in there. And then
Derek, you don't like to muck people's Grimers.
Wow. If anyone understands what the heck he's talking about, I don't know if I should congratulate you or be concerned for you. And then Derek already talked about the last level, the moment with Mew in the rainbow
You
cloud.
have skipped a valley.
Well, like I mean, kind of already talked about with the Gyarados thing, but that's my favorite level
Mhm.
because Valley, like, it feels like a roller coaster at parts. Like you're going steep down the slopes as the Staryus whip around you. That's my favorite because I like that the speed of the vehicle feels exciting in and of itself.
And that
Um,
is the Staryu the only one that like the interaction is the photograph?
like there's nothing you can do to it.
It's that to get the Starmie, you have to get the Staryu in a centered shot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like the evolution there is because they're moving around too fast. Like it's not a hit them or something. It's
Take a picture.
yeah, that timing because that has a
That's
lot that
interesting.
is weird, like heavy on the timing. Because like getting the Squirtles out of the river on Valley is a lot of aiming and timing.
Right.
And of course, the Magikarp, to get in that situation, you have to hit it out of the river so that a very angry Mankey punches it
Oh.
to get to where it's set up to create the Gyarados. So, like, the fish has had a bad day.
Yeah.
And then you have the thing at the end to get the alternate ending where you have to hit the Squirtles, like, up a hill to hit a Mankey
Yeah.
at the top.
You have to like Mario style, like knock the shell along the ground to get the Mankey at the top of the mountain to tumble down and fall into a button.
Yeah.
I just love the Rube Goldberg machine interactions.
Yeah.
Like that. It's super rad. Derek, did you have a favorite level?
I think Cave, like
Yeah.
Cave and River were probably always my favorites. Just I really like the vibes of both of them, like going down that lazy river was cool, getting to see all the Pokemon and then yeah, Cave, it's kind of cool. You're just floating through this and seeing, like the stuff like you mentioned, like the Jigglypuff getting chased by the coughing or getting the Jinx to, getting all the triggers so that you have the big Articuno ending felt like so cool and cinematic.
Yeah.
It's a really cool level. It's this music I remember really digging in Cave. It's just kind of a little bit creepy, a little bit, not
Yeah.
super creepy, but a little bit.
The sound of the water drips echoing.
Yeah.
So immersive. Just what a oh man, they knew what they were doing with this one. And then I think the game should get some credit for the system at which Professor Oak at the end of the level judges your photographs,
Mhm.
because really satisfying gameplay loop for me. Like coming to him with my shots I was proud of. It reminds me of like when a cat like has killed something and it's dropping it at your feet, and I'm like. Like I mean, like notice me, senpai. Like I want his approval, and I think that the way the game scores the photos is pretty spot on. I feel like most of the time, what he decides is a better photo, I tend to agree is a better
Mhm.
photo. But it's also great that you always have the option of keeping the lower scoring photo if that's like the one you prefer to be in your album.
Yeah.
So I love the whole Professor Oak grading system.
Interestingly, I discovered that there are people who have been, I'm not going to say traumatized by, but definitely carry the scars of his grading approach.
His criticisms.
Yeah.
The center thing. I know that's the thing that people always like, well, you don't
Or
have
close.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I think that It's Okay bit was a bit that resonated with others more than it ever did with me.
Yeah, but you know what though? I think as a public school teacher, sometimes you got to tell them, look, I'm proud of you. But this isn't great. Do it again.
I'm much more in the I often disagreed with the score.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot like that is not the better of these shots.
I think with pretty rare exception, it felt kind of intuitive what it would take to please him.
Yeah, and I will say too, like Mike, I think that this kind of was one of the things that instilled like a love of photography in me was
Yeah.
this, and that getting graded at the end and being like, did I take a good shot? I think this one's pretty good. Is Oak gonna agree? Like, the thrill of that was always something cool.
And it's weird though. I mean, it's gonna sound really arrogant, but I'm always baffled to meet someone who like doesn't have a photographic eye, and you see like their Instagram pics, and like they don't know the rule of thirds or what depth of field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the difference between a picture by someone who knows the basics and someone who doesn't, it's really staggering sometimes. I'm afraid I'm going to eat my words though, because we're going to play a game right now called the mini game minute snap judgments. So we are going to be each other's Professor Oaks. We are about to upload pictures into our shared Discord server. And by the way, go ahead and go to www.theoldswitcheroo.com if you want to join the Discord. Maybe we could do a little maybe we could have everybody in the Discord submit and we could score them. That'd be fun, huh? Yeah, we're doing a thing. We're
There
making
you
a thing. So I will go first. I'm going to upload a picture, and then I have a loose formula submitted for your approval, boys. If you want to look at this, the scoring rules are: you rank the size of the subject in the frame out of 10. That's worth up to 10. The pose is up to 10, so possible of 20. Double if it's properly centered. That's how they score it in the game. And then plus 2 points if there's duplicates or more of the one thing. I'm going to go first.
You said to solve for x.
Yes.
X equals 2.
X equals, I don't know what the 2 is doing there. Listen. I'll delete that later. So I just uploaded my first picture. And Derek or Mike, if you guys could describe for our audio listeners what this is a picture of.
It is a cat laying on, it looks like one of those like Subway or like the sandwich making thing. I guess that's a taco. Maybe it's a sandwich. No, it's a sandwich. Yeah, a cat laying on a sandwich making Subway line thing with the avocados and all the good stuff in the background.
All right, so size rank out of 10, and be honest. Don't pull punches. Oak doesn't pull punches.
I'd say that's a 10. That's a big cat right there.
Yeah, but Mike,
I'm wondering about the cat being partially out of the shop.
right?
Okay, I'll give it a 9 then. I'll give it a 9.
9. Okay, pose.
It's kind of curled up there. Let's say an 8. An 8.
Mike, agree. 8.
It seems high seems high to me, but I'm not a pet person.
Well, give me yours and I'll average it.
Yeah.
Give me yours. Be honest. Rather than coming to an agreement.
I gotta go like 6.
6. So then we're going to call that 7. All right. Properly centered. I think that's up for debate with this one. It's almost like it's too close.
What? It's too close to centered?
Well, I mean, if you're too close to the camera, right? You can't really be centered if part of you is off the frame.
I think it's still in the center.
Okay. So times 2.
Yeah.
I'll take it. All right. And then I don't get any bonuses. So my score is 16. Wait, hold on. 16 times 2 is what?
32.
That's 32. Yeah. 32 points for me. All right. Who wants to go next? That's my party sub. That's my chunky cat. Party sub.
I can go. I have a question though, because
Yes.
I had to take in a picture of my cat, but I also just by chance my mom, who works at like a pet hotel, sent me sent me a picture this morning of a bunch from her work unprompted. So would you guys rather see the one I took or the one my mom took?
No offense. I want to see the one your mom took.
All right.
And Derek's mom, you gotta watch this on YouTube when we upload it. You're gonna see your pic. It's gonna go viral. Hit us with it. All right. So for our audio listeners, this is a picture of what looks like a dog kennel or a dog park, perhaps. And there's a bunch of dogs looking longingly at a tennis ball that I believe was thrown into the distance. So, Mike, size the rank of the subject. I guess that dog in the center, right, with kind of scraggly fur would be the subject. Would you agree?
I think so.
Okay. Derek's mom, gotta give that like a 4?
Yeah, I was thinking 4.
4?
4 size, yeah.
Pose? It's looking away. Derek's mom. Derek's mom.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're gonna gain and lose a listener within the span of 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think we're about the same on that.
Yeah, because the Oak always takes off points if the Pokemon is facing away.
Yeah.
So I gotta go 4 again. Mike, agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it properly centered? I don't know that it is. I don't know that it is. Okay.
I think that is
Close enough to count?
enough to count as center. Yeah.
All right, now here's what's gonna make up the points. So right now we're at 16.
And this is what I was thinking right here. This is what I saw
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. By my rules, 20 extra points for having a lot of the same Pokemon. Derek's mom, you beat my score. That's a 36. Well done. Wonderful. All right, Mike, you got something for us? Final round. 36 is the score to beat.
Yeah. I have something.
All right, let's get it on the Discord. while he's uploading it, I should be full disclosure. Mine was a Photoshop, in case that wasn't obvious.
Okay.
But we never said that. But I Photoshopped it. Like I made it.
Yeah, I
you
was
know? So
like, it was one of those things. Is like, this looks kind of off. Why were you at a Subway with a cat?
Why is
Also,
there a
his
cat?
toe is missing.
I was wondering if you were gonna Kate Middleton this thing and figure out like the problem with it. Mike, this you got it for us?
Yeah. I'm attempting to game the system for at least second place.
All right, for our what the heck? For our audio listeners, this is what appears to be perhaps some kind of safari or
Kangaroos?
zoo.
Is that kangaroos?
This is a bunch of kangaroos. This isn't in a zoo. This is just in a empty paddock near my wife's parents' house.
Empty paddock and his wife. She was on our Mario Kart episode. She is an Aussie. She lives or she lived for the longest time in Australia. Okay, so let's start off with ranking the size in the frame. I mean, they're real small. I feel like Oak would give this like a 2 or a 3.
I would give this a half of one. Like I had to zoom
Okay.
in to even see it. I would give it a
All right.
1 on
Okay.
based on just the
Well,
size.
I said up to 3. You give it a 1, so let's call it a 2.
Okay.
Is it centered? Sorry, the pose. I mean, this almost feels like you were close. Like, I don't think Oak would give points for this one. I don't know. Hot take. I swear I'm not trying to disqualify Mike, but if the goal of this game is to grade the way he would grade, I don't think he'd accept this.
The goal is to use your formula.
Eric.
The formula, I don't see any. They're just kind of standing there, so I don't know about a pose.
But I think it is worth mentioning though is that's one of my joy cons of the game is that you will sometimes get a really cool moment, but it's just not good enough for him. And so he won't even consider it. It's just and you got to try again. So just so that I don't get accused of trying to stop the count or whatever like happened last time. Let's say pose. I'm gonna go with 3, Derek. They're what? 4. They're kind of rearing up. I like that they're sort of meerkatting it.
Yeah, I would have gone with your initial 3 probably. Like there, I guess
Okay.
there's which one? Because which one are we talking about, right? Because we got to choose a main one, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the one that would be center. Let's call it a 3.
Okay. Yeah. That
Let's
works
call
for
it a
me.
3. Is it centered? Yeah, it's the center.
Is it?
So I think it is.
Okay.
I think we can
Well,
call that.
I'll defer to your judgment.
So that puts Mike at 10, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You freaking jerk.
Yeah.
14, 15, 16, 17. You broke my game. 17, 30, 32. That makes Mike win with a score of 42.
Oh, boo.
For the record, I have just shared the picture I was going to use before I knew the formula of a koala in a tree.
Oh, that's koala chilling.
Yeah. I see. I live next to the zoo. I should have just bought a ticket, and taken
That's
a bunch
right.
of pictures.
And I will again also clarify that koala is also in the wild.
Let's just say here at the old switcheroo, even though I'm personally upset, I respect the count. And Mike wins 42, the first winner of our old switcheroo snap judgment. Everyone on the Discord, let's see if you can beat that and do it with
Yes.
integrity.
I am actually going to segue this into this exact sort of thing is the exact sort of thing that was frustrating in the game.
Yeah.
The one that I think most exemplified that is I think there was the distinction between a good shot and what was considered something like a special pose.
Yeah.
In particular that, where it was things like, oh, well, this pose is worth a lot. It's like, I don't know why.
Which is why I'm glad in the sequel there's like you have the 4 different poses. Like they kind of solved that problem. I feel like having like this is a 1-star pose, here's a 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star, and they all get their own individual points.
Although they do go like, oh yeah, we're going to call these 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star, and the stars don't actually signify when one's better than the other. I'm like, you're really using a system that implies that.
Yeah, I think it's just more like complexity. Like it's doing something more in this one. This one, 1-star, it's just kind of standing there. You know, and
Yeah.
But it's like with this actually, and ironically, the Pokemon I feel like Pokemon Snap struggles with to really work for me is Pikachu because of this.
Okay, explain.
Because they put in so much in the way of special poses that are worth various points.
Yeah.
That it kind of turns into not what's the best picture of Pikachu, it's which of the Pikachus is doing the most advanced pose.
Yeah, so what Mike's referring to is that there was a third category in this game. Was this in So I'm not a big fan of the new game. I actually traded it in without beating it because I just didn't enjoy how it was forcing me to play the same level over and over and over again. It felt like it was kind of cheating out longevity, whereas this game I felt like kind of wasted my time a little bit less. There's also a chance I just wasn't very good at it and wasn't doing enough to advance fast enough. But I don't know. I feel like I spent a couple hours in the first 2 levels and I was like, I don't know, but I'm guessing based on the facial expressions you guys are making right now, you guys like the new one.
Yeah, I think the scoring in it feels a lot closer to what I expect. Like the photos that I get in there, usually I agree with what they think is the better one. And I greatly appreciate that it kind of gets around that problem that Pokemon Snap has of that should have counted as a picture of that Pokemon. I think the new Pokemon Snap, which aside, I really, 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 really like that they called it new Pokemon Snap and
Yeah.
didn't just try to act like Pokemon Snap hadn't already been made.
Yeah, that's a Nintendo thing.
But it has a thing that is basically like it will show when you're taking the shot, this is the Pokemon that's going to be considered the object of this
Yeah.
Pokemon. So you know that that's in there. It feels like it's a little bit more generous about it. I almost always agreed with what it was evaluating as the better shot in a way that I don't with the original Pokemon Snap. Even though I enjoy the game, there's bits of that scoring that I found a lot more frustrating than the original.
Yeah.
When I hit the new scoring, the fact that it separates out the poses, I'm like, this is great because it allows you to get the different poses and it allows you to separate, the distinction between I have a very good picture of a Bidoof doing absolutely nothing interesting, but it's shot well versus now it's doing something more exciting.
So I'm kind of down on it. Mike's definitely up on it. Derek, you said you also had it. Are you pro or con Pokemon Snag? You know what I'm saying?
I'd say I'm pro. Yeah, I didn't beat it. I did play a good amount. To me, it just feels like, new Pokemon Snap feels like a very apt title because it just feels like an improved version of the old one. It's not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's just like, hey, this is a game that was really beloved. We haven't made a sequel to it. It's been 22 years. We're going to give you a new one. And there's, one of the things about the first one's great, but, it's an older game. Obviously, the graphics which are great at the time, are now a little bit dated. Obviously, it's got just 63 Pokemon in it. Now there's been so many more generations of Pokemon, and it's cool to get something other outside of the original 151. Like you're like have a whole level like that whole level where it's just you and Meganium feels really cool. It feels kind of reminiscent of what we're seeing on the screen right now with the Mew, but it's a much more lush environment. It's in a level that you've actually played through. It's really cool. Just like wow, you're getting to go through the world of Pokemon, but now it's got all of the Pokemon. Now it's like all these Pokemon that from gens 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to right before Scarlet and Violet. And that was kind of my main draw. Was like getting to go back into this game that I love so much, but a new and improved version of it.
Yeah.
I am encountering Pokemon in new Pokemon Snap that I have never seen before because they haven't made it into Pokemon Go. And I haven't played a standard Pokemon game since the original games.
See, I'm the opposite. I don't play Go really, but I love the mainline games.
And I like the trading card game on Game Boy Color.
Oh, man.
The other thing is when he gets to some of the special interactions, and this is not a thing that I hold against Pokemon Snap, because the Nintendo 64, you very much have limits of resources. In new Pokemon Snap, you get to a point where it starts giving you quests of, hey, I think there's something interesting here. Can you get a photo of it? And it stores those. So like you can get this is my best shot of, I haven't gotten this one yet, but I think there's one you can get of like a Pidgeot grabbing a Magikarp out of the water.
I have that one. Yeah.
I want that one.
That's really cool.
I may ask you questions later about how you got that one if at some point I still haven't figured that out. But that's a great example where it's like that is a shot where because it treats those as like your special quest as a separate thing, that's not getting mixed in with the point system.
And it has a fun kind of Obra Dinn sort of thing of like, okay, this is what I have to make happen. How do I make it happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And I like this stuff. It like kind of like it's like almost like like it's reminiscent of like posting something on Instagram where it's like, oh, this photo got a bunch of likes or whatever. Like, I think that was a really cool element they added.
And it's funny because you guys talked about how long it took to make the sequel. So the devs were resistant to it for the longest time because they said that smartphones have ruined the novelty of Pokemon Snap. When Pokemon Snap came out on the Nintendo 64, we were still buying wind-up cameras at the grocery store.
The little Kodak, yeah.
The little Kodak, and you had to take your photos to a store, and you wouldn't know for a week if you got a good picture.
Yeah, Robin Williams got to develop it.
I've had the conversation with people before that you can tell for people roughly of our age if they were taking a lot of photos like growing up.
Yeah.
Because when they take photos now, if you grew up with that, you kind of just take your shot and you have the confidence to go, I think I got the shot I want, versus people that immediately take a photo and then look at it and repeat. But when you grew up using film and it was you're taking the shots, you can't see any of them. So you kind of got used to, you couldn't check a photo to see, did you get what you wanted? You kind of just took it and be like, I believe that I had it, or I took two because I wanted to make sure that I got that.
Can we get to the Joy Cons so we can then rank our game here? I think Mike already touched on one of the frustrations with how the game is scored, and it gives too much point value to the special score, which is what you get rewarded for triggering special interactions. That's like the Rube Goldberg score. You know, the Charmander, the Charmeleon, Charizard. As serene and iconic and memorable as it is, I remember being so bummed as a kid that the final level is just Mew. There's no actual stage. I think the last level of a game should feel like the culmination of all the things you've learned, and this felt kind of underwhelming, as cute as it was. So I think that the last level is memorable, but I kind of wish it was different. I guess it's more of like the boss fight, right?
Yeah.
This is what a boss in this game is.
It's like the Rainbow Road almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my only other criticism is sort of philosophical, but like the apple, right? I hate how it sounds. Like that sound of apples toss, it's strange, but it bugs me that apples are almost better at annoying Pokemon than the pester ball. Because like you have an item that's supposed to make them mad, but then the apple does that too. And so my brain is like, well, if you throw the apple, they should eat it or get happy. You know what I mean? But that's nitpicky. I love this game. I couldn't find a lot of things.
They get happy when you throw an apple near them. They don't get happy when you hit them with an apple.
I suppose so. I suppose so.
The next time I see you in person, we can demonstrate this if you would like.
Putting an apple near me versus throwing it at me.
Yeah, we'll see which one you enjoy.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot to criticize, though. Like you saw, that's kind of a reach. Do you guys have any Joy Cons about the game that we haven't talked about?
I don't think I can properly blame the game for this. This was the first game I played once I got added onto Jaymo's Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah, my family plan.
Part of that was, I don't know what it is with this game. I could not find, I'm just going to say that I must have owned this copy at the time I did this, and so nothing illegal was occurring. I couldn't find a ROM that could play this and could work because of something about the rail aspect. I couldn't get it to move the camera. And so this was something that I couldn't replicate until they added it on Nintendo Switch Online, and I got Nintendo Switch Online, which is frustrating, but I can't really blame the game for the fact that I couldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a negative association with the game, but not the game's fault.
I have been frustrated by the game, but not in a way that's the game's fault. I think I wouldn't say negative association. It was just like, I would like to play this again, and there's not really a way to do that until now.
We should be getting paid by Nintendo for this podcast because no one else is no one is talking about this service but us.
Unfortunately, no one's listening to us talk about the service.
Hey,
I didn't even really know it was a thing until I heard until I started talking to you guys.
You own a Zelda hat.
Yeah.
You should know about this.
Yeah.
We should not. That's just shows you just how bad Nintendo's PR team is.
Yeah.
And we had to tell you about it. I don't know. Any other Joy Cons, guys, before we get to our rankings?
I think, mine would be, it's something you touched on with the new Pokemon Snap, and I think it's present in both games. But I think new Pokemon Snap mitigated it a little bit by being like, oh, you can do this at night, or you can, it's the amount of times you had to replay levels. It just felt, it wore on me a little bit. And I know that you could speed up things but it's okay, if you wanted to get the Articuno shot, you had to play through the whole level again. And it's you have to spend so much time. And if it was the Charmander thing, which is a great moment, but you have to do all the things to set it up first to get the Charmeleon to show up, to do all this stuff. And then if you screw up at the end, it's great, cool. I went through this whole level. I screwed up one thing, starting over now, because there are so few levels. You just are seeing the same things kind of over and over and over again, which it's both something cool about it because you get to try and interact with it in different ways. Like a Majora's Mask, where you get to go replay the same 3 days, and if I talk to this person, do this. Same kind of idea, but it does, so it's a feature and a bug at the same time.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't view it as a bad thing, because it's a lot of, okay, if I go back through, I think if I do this, then this, I can get a better shot to what I want. I like the trying to improve upon this element.
What is not great, though, is that I remember as a kid, I 100% at this game. I got every pose, I got all the Pokemon, and Derek's right. There'd be this thing of okay, I need this one specific thing. It's 3 minutes into the level, so you just sit there holding down the boost button bored because you've maxed out all of these Pokemon, right? And like you don't need those achievements. It's almost like if the game had just had little checkpoints and then at any
Yeah.
point you could have pressed pause and then go back to the checkpoint. I do get though that kind of takes away from the thrill of, ooh, I got the shot. If it's too easy to recreate that, like there's probably a sweet spot that I think they hit for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that all of us beat it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The one thing too is like sometimes you boost just a little bit too long. You're like, God damn it, I got to start all over again.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask a final thing. I am actually curious, specifically with Pikachu, what is your favorite of the Pikachu special poses kind of things?
I mean, here's my hot take. Pikachu is overrated. Like, I feel like there's so many. We just lost viewers again. There's just so many. Look at the screen, right? Look at Bulbasaur, right? It's like I get the Pikachu's the face of Pokemon, so I honestly was unamused by all of Pikachu's antics. So I guess by default it has to be when he wakes up Zapdos, when he zaps that egg and it bursts open. But that's really more about
Yeah.
Zapdos. I'm not a Pika pal.
I'm kind of in the same camp where I think Pikachu is a little overrated, honestly, and especially since I think he takes away a lot of the shine from Raichu. Raichu's great, you know.
Derek, we just became best friends. Oh my
Yes.
God. Raichu should have an episode on your underrated podcast. That's how great that boy is.
So, but I mean, I will say it is cool when he comes in with the balloons. I did think that was cool.
All right.
I did not remember that. And because Pokemon Go has used that like 6 different times as an event Pokemon with slightly different balloons, to see that and be like, oh my gosh, this is way older than I thought.
Well, and also, we'll get to it for the Pokemon trading card game, but Flying Pikachu was a very sought after collector's item in the Pokemon trading card game. And Surfing Pikachu was as well.
Yeah.
So they had these little moments.
The surfboard, I think, is actually the one that feels most rewarding.
Because you could get a surfing Pikachu in yellow. I remember that was like a big thing.
Yeah, no, to get Pikachu on the surfboard, and this was satisfying. And then it was also because I didn't think of Pikachu as that at the time, was to then get that. And I think for at least one of the events in Pokemon Go, Surf has been the move Pikachu had. And it's like, oh, I didn't properly appreciate how this all tied together.
I was gonna say one thing too. I will say with the whole surfing Pikachu thing is, and it ties back into my boy Raichu and how a Alolan Raichu is basically like surfing on his tail, which is so cool. And there's a part in New Pokemon Snap where you can do all this stuff and like get a Pikachu running around, but then there's also an Alolan Raichu in the background surfing on his tail, and he goes like he's surfing around the sand dunes, and you can take a picture of him as he's just like shooting off of the sand dune. And I got a picture this morning of a surfing Alolan Raichu just like hanging, like just getting some air off of a sand dune, and I was like really proud of that picture. So that's one of my favorite Pikachu adjacent kind of moments. So I gotta say that one.
I'm looking forward to that. And I'm gonna do a final question. Since this only had 63 of the original Pokemon, is there one Pokemon that you wish was in there that isn't? You only had to pick one.
Oh, that's actually a good question.
Do we have to pick one of the 151?
Yeah, something that they could have put in but didn't.
I just feel like it's a missed opportunity to have Eevee and just be chasing Chauncey around. Like there should be 3 different interactions to get the evolutions. Pester Ball should make him mad and he becomes Flareon, so I guess those 3, the evolutions, I would have loved to have seen in this game. I'm wearing the shirt.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right answer. And it's one of those things I'm trying to remember, like I didn't play through it all again when I replayed it for this, and I'm like, I'm gonna say I would probably say something that like is actually in somebody who is actually in the game. So I think like Jolteon would be cool to have specifically because Jolteon was my favorite of the evolutions. He's my favorite electric type. So I would say that one.
I had a weird Berenstain Bears moment. Am I crazy, or do we all remember Machamp or Machop or whatever, one of the Machamp things being on this cover?
I don't.
Okay.
No, yeah.
So it's just me then.
You're just from another universe. That was the Mandela effect.
Was odd that the other starters don't have their evolutions in this.
Yeah, but I mean, as Derek said, Charizard was always the biggest deal.
I have no more additional questions.
All right, Derek, ready to move on to our rankings?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, guys, let's end this episode by doing as we always do by ranking each game as a NintenDO or NintenDON'T. If you guys don't mind, I'll go first. Huge fan of rail shooters. House of the Dead, Area 51. I just love how in the ways that those feel like a cinematic, almost theme park-esque experience. And this might be one of the best ones. I think its non-violent approach to a rail shooter game makes it kind of recommendable to pretty much everyone. And I think it's the perfect length. I love games that are quick to beat but difficult to master, because then you can kind of decide how much of your life you want to lose to this game. I think this is a Super Nintendo. I think if you are forking over the extra cheese for the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, this should be one of the very first games you boot up. And hey, Nintendo, I know you're listening, okay? Why don't you have a Pokemon Snap app mobile phone game? Like you have the AR with Pokemon Go. Add a camera mode to Pokemon Go where now I'm not catching and gym battling over. I'm just trying to get the best picture of the AR Pokemon and score it. You know what I mean? What a slam dunk that I can't believe would be that. Mike, why am I a teacher? I am wasted talent. I got so many dang good ideas. But speaking of good ideas, Super Nintendo for Pokemon Snap. Derek, as our guest, would you like to go next?
Sure, yeah. Also a Super Nintendo for me. Like this game is phenomenal. It really defined my childhood. Like playing all of these Pokemon. There's so many Pokemon expansions and stuff like that, or side games, whatever you want to call them. And this for me was always the one. And for years, I was just like, make another one. I need more Pokemon Snap. I need to get a picture of Meganium. I need to get a picture of Ralts. I need to get a picture of all these Pokemon that aren't in this game. And it took them 22 years, but they finally did it. But yeah, this game it's a classic. It's something that, despite, I said it being a little repetitive, is very replayable. And it took a Pokemon somewhere it had never been before.
All right. So, Mike, you gonna join us in the bandwagon?
Yeah, that's the option we have. I'd go Nintendo 64 on this one.
Really? The highest ranking, the must-play game, Nintendo 64.
I nearly considered deciding to say, based off of our trivia, adding Nintendo 64 DD onto
DD?
this one. I absolutely enjoy this. I mean, it's partially like why I was excited also with the new Pokemon Snap to have more Pokemon Snap. Going back and playing this, I mean, effectively in the last year and a half of me having a Switch, I have beaten this game twice.
Wow.
And been satisfied with it both times. I really enjoy it. I like that it is a somewhat relaxing, still score-based thing. It hits this very good balance for me.
Sweet spot. Derek, do you want to change your score to Nintendo 64? Are you good with
I think I do. Honestly.
Whoa!
I think you could. Yeah, this is and I don't know. Like I always think of like how Twitch and streaming is such a big thing. The original Twitch and streaming was your little brother watching you play Nintendo 64. And so that was like me and my experience with my brothers are younger. So like I just remember playing this game all the time. And my brother's just like being enraptured, like watching me and seeing me get all these different shots. So, I think, this one, it's pretty special.
I think I got to stick with Super. I'm not going to do it a complete clean sweep just because I feel like the moment you really start to click with the game, it's over.
Yeah.
I wish it was a little longer, and like Mike said, resources were limited, but
it keeps adding things.
No, I get it, but
I'm at the point now where it's the score challenges on the levels.
But my whole thing is the levels, the ride aspect, the theme park-esque, and to only have 6 and the 7th one be not really a thing. It's so close to perfection, but I'm going to stick with my Super. But this might be our highest rated game. I don't know. What did Kat give Mario Kart 64?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really just count these as a binary thing, either do or don't. And the rest is just modifiers.
Yeah, it's all just for conversation. Well, guys, we covered the Joy Pros, the Joy Cons, and every bit in between. We're going to call that game over for today. The final scores are 1 Super Nintendo and 2 Nintendo 64s. So highly recommended Pokemon Snap. Derek, our fellow Spider-Man 3 apologist, thank you so much for joining us. In case it wasn't obvious, I love your content, and I wanted to get all the exposure it deserves.
I see what you did there. Very nice.
So, Derek, why don't you tell our listeners one more time where they can find your stuff?
Thank you. Yeah. However you're listening to this, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, also on YouTube as well. You can listen to Underrated Movie Podcast. Just look that up on your podcast app of choice or on any social media, on all the social medias as well. Of course, Instagram. Because I do love taking pictures, as is evident from this. Check us out there. Like I said at the top, you can find my writing on places like, of course, I have a Medium blog, but then I also write for places like Film Threat, covering independent films. I do top 10 lists for Watch Mojo, so you can find my stuff there. Check out my other podcast, Midnight Film Society, which comes out on Mondays when Underrated doesn't come out. On Mondays, every week, I have some kind of podcast coming out. And then if that's still not enough of me for you, then I also have a Patreon where, in addition to stuff that I would cover on Underrated, which episodes come out a week early there, I also do 2 bonus podcasts, one about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and then one about sports films that comes out once a month called Underdog. So doing a lot of stuff, having a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing. So everyone, join us next time when Mike and I will be barrel rolling through the Nintendo Switch Online catalog in our epic quest to research and review them all. Next on the docket, all 3 mainline series entries in the iconic Star Fox series. Yeah, it's going to be a good one, Derek.
That's
we got
cool.
some special guests lined up. Super excited. Everyone, don't forget to visit the oldswitcheroo.com. That's switcharoo.com. There you can find links to our Spotify, our Discord, our YouTube, TikTok, and all the social medias you can shake a joystick at. You can even leave an old-timey voicemail, meaning we would literally love to hear from you. Please like, comment, subscribe, or review. And as always, thanks for listening to The Old Switcheroo, where we've been talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo. Game on, everyone.
He's hearing music. We're not.
I gathered that from context.
Mike, I'm dancing so you can tell when it's over. My moves are wasted.
I have a shiny Kangaskhan.
Okay, yeah.
But
I've got one too, yeah.
I have a level 1 shiny Kangaskhan.
Okay, nice.
Because it was actually caught in Australia.
Oh, okay, wow.
You should probably see a doctor for that, right?
I am a doctor.
That's true. Not that kind of doctor, to quote you.
Yeah.
But Derek, you missed the part where like my brother comes up to me today and he goes, "So Mike's YouTube short from your podcast got 1,000 views and it's basically just him. Does that make you jealous?" I'm like, "Shut up."
Oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Oh, really?
You're at the end last second though, right?
That means one of your brothers sees any of our stuff. So
I mean, honestly, it's gonna be this thing where like for my birthday this year, I'm like, guys, just give us all a review. You know what I mean? I've got a lot of friends and family. I got a lot of people who I don't think hates me, but they're not. Look, you don't have to listen to every episode. Go in, great guy, love his attitude, 5 stars. You know what I mean?